All right, welcome back to part two of our 6 steps to scale your business. If you have already watched the first video, this is a 3-part video series of our 6 steps to scale your business masterclass. And now we're going to be talking about step 2 in our 6 steps, which is niche, which is all about, back to our definition here, it's creating a commercial profitable enterprise. So that's all about marketing and eliminating the cash flow peaks and valleys in your business. A lot of times what you see with business owners is you invest a lot of time in marketing to acquire new customers, and then you get busy onboarding those customers, serving those customers, and during that time, you don't do any marketing. So you wind up seeing a big kind of cash flow peak and valley where you're like, oh, I'm acquiring new customers and serving them, but I'm not doing any marketing. And then your revenue goes back down because you haven't kept that pipeline full. So how do we create a consistent full pipeline for you? And that's all about getting clear on your niche. So before we go into how you go about carving out your niche, we want to start by defining niche, right? So if I asked you what's your definition of niche, I usually hear things like it's what we do differently than our competition. It's the segment of the market that we serve the best. And all of those are great definitions. But for us, the Action Coach definition of niche is no price competition. You might be asking, what do you mean no price competition? Price is always a consideration. And yes, price is always a consideration, but we don't want it to be the only consideration, because when you are selling on price alone, it is a race to the bottom of who can tolerate the smallest profit margins. We don't play that game. And if you have a really strong and clearly defined niche, you don't have to play that game either. And I do think it's important to address. I hear a lot of times, you might hear, especially if you're newer in business, so you have to pick a niche, you have to pick a niche. And yes, you do need to be clear on who your ideal customers are, but you can serve more than one niche at a given time. You just need to market to them differently, right? You need to make sure you are speaking specifically to the different niches that you are serving. So how do you go about creating your niche? So for us, there's 2 parts. The first is your USP, or your unique selling proposition. And that is what makes you different. That is what you do differently than your competition. But you need to make sure that it is a differentiator that people are willing to pay for. So if I'm Dave's Plumbing and I'm the only plumbing company in town that drives around in blue trucks, yes, that is a differentiator. But are people actually going to pay more money for that? Probably not. So really understand, how can you be adding value? How can you be doing things differently than your competition in a way that people are willing to pay more money for? So really understanding what makes you different is a really important piece. And then the second piece is a guarantee. And we believe that every business can have a guarantee. And a lot of people go right to, oh, you mean a money back guarantee? And it could be a money back guarantee, but really it's about understanding what are the fears? What are those fears that people have of doing business with your industry? And how do you address those fears upfront and take them off the table? Right. So if I'm looking at an ad and I see, John's Plumbing, right? So this is what I see for about 90% of the ads I see out there. It looks like a carbon copy of a business card. It's like, hey, we're John's Plumbing. We do X, Y, and Z, and we've been in business for 27 years, and this is our license number, right? And that's okay. But then if you look at Dave's Plumbing right next to that, and it says, hey, we're Dave's Plumbing. And if you think about what are the fears that people have doing business with a plumbing company, or really anybody in the trades, it's you're not going to show up when you say you're going to, and you're going to leave my place a mess when you leave, right? So if I see Dave's Plumbing and Dave says, well, hey, we're Dave's Plumbing and we guarantee that we will show up within 15 minutes of our scheduled call time, or your service call is free, and we guarantee that we will leave the place cleaner than it was when we got there. Which one of those 2 companies are you going to call? You're going to call Dave's Plumbing every single time, right? And you can have fun. You can have fun with this too, right? So Dave's Plumbing could have the no crack guarantee, where they guarantee that all of their plumbers will wear a belt when they show up to your house, right? So marketing is all about having fun. It's all about standing out. But really think about, what are those fears that people have of doing business with your industry, and how can you address those upfront and guarantee that they're not going to experience those things. So getting really clear on what those are is really important before you start going out and marketing, because there's good news and bad news about marketing. The bad news is that 80% of marketing will fail. Nobody has a crystal ball. 80% of marketing will fail. The good news is that 20% works. So as long as you test and measure, you can understand what is that 20% that's working, turn the volume all the way up on the 20% that's working, and that other 80%, you either tweak it or you toss it, right? So make sure that you're testing and measuring your marketing. And when you see somebody say, hey, mention this scan this QR code, or mention this coupon code, or mention this ad, that's all an indication that people are testing and measuring their marketing, so you can understand whether marketing is working or not. And a marketing strategy is deemed successful when it is returning more incremental profit than it costs you to invest in that marketing strategy. So it's really important for you to understand where are your leads coming from, and that's something you can easily implement in your business. The first thing that you or whoever answers your phones can ask is, hey, where did you hear about us? So you can capture and understand where people are coming from, what marketing is working, and then you can really look at how do you start leveraging your marketing. So you'll see on the screen here two cars, right? There's the Volkswagen Golf and the Audi R8. And what we previously thought was a rhetorical question of which would you rather have, although we did have someone recently tell us that they would rather have the Volkswagen Golf than the Audi R8, which kind of hurt our metaphor. But either way, the idea here is that both of these cars are built on the same chassis. So underneath the fundamentals are the same, and it's the same thing in business. It might look a little, a chassis is going to look different in, let's say, a manufacturing business versus a retail business versus a service business, but the fundamentals are still the same. And if you want to change what's on top of your business chassis, you can. So how do we go about doing that? We call it our 5 ways, interchangeably our business chassis. And we find that, most business owners, we know 3 things, how many customers you have, what your revenue is, and how much profit you're making, or at least you do as if you have basic money mastery. And we all want more of these, right? We want more customers, we want more revenue, we want more profit. But you can't just go out and get these directly. These are all results, right? So these are all outputs. So what are the inputs that create more of the outputs that we're looking for? So that's where we really start to leverage our marketing and looking at our 5 ways to grow your business. So you'll see here in red, the things we want more of: customers, revenue, and profit, and our 5 ways to grow your business. So that starts with your number of leads. So last year, Dave's Plumbing had 4,000 people approach his business. So maybe they hit the website, they called in, social media, like and follow on social media. 4,000 people approached his business last year, and he converted at a 25% rate. That gave him 1,000 customers. On average, in a year's time, each customer came back twice. So for Dave's Plumbing, maybe they got a bathroom vanity put in, they got their sewer line cleaned, came back 2 times in a year, and on average, they spent $100 when they come, and that leaves him with $200,000 in revenue. He has a 25% profit margin, so after all the bills are paid, employees are paid, that leaves him with $50,000 in profit. So these 5 ways exist in every single business. So if you're not measuring your 5 ways, that's where you need to start. You need to understand what is the current state of your 5 ways, and then we can look at ways to improve each of these 5 ways, and I'll show you what that does to the bottom line of the business. So we start looking at lead gen, right? And so we're not talking about doubling right now. We're just going to talk about a 10% increase. So when we started with lead gen, and I'll preface this by saying we almost never start with lead gen unless you're a brand new business, and that's got to be your focus. It is generally 6 to 8 times more expensive to go and get a new customer than it is to get people that know, like, and trust you to do business with you more and to send you referrals. So just so we're sticking with how the math runs here, we'll start with lead gen, and referrals is generally where we want to start, and make sure that you have a referral system. And by system, I mean a process that you follow every single time, where you are positioning with your clients that, hey, I'm going to be asking you for referrals, and you are asking for them regularly. So making sure that you have a really strong referral system is super important in there. Beyond that, that's when we start looking at, we have over 70 strategies around lead generation. Not all of them are going to apply in every business, but we do is pick the ones that are most likely to work in the given industry, test and measure different marketing around there, figure out what's working, and turn the volume up on that 20% that is really working well for you. So in a year's time, can we increase that by 20% or by 10%? Absolutely. And then we start looking at conversion rate. And for conversion rate, I talk to a lot of business owners. Conversion rate's all about your sales process, right? And I talk to a lot of business owners that say, "Oh, I don't do sales. I don't have a sales process. I just talk to people, and some of them buy from me." That sounds a lot like a sales process. So a lot of us have had trash around sales. Nobody wants to be the used car salesperson, but sales is a noble profession if you're doing it with high integrity and high authenticity, and you have to be measuring your sales process. So understanding what are the steps that you follow every single time so you can measure them and look to make improvements in different parts, understand where they're dropping off in your sales process. And then how do you increase that? How do you increase your conversion rate? Maybe it's putting a guarantee in your business. Maybe it's client testimonials. Do you have a system around getting testimonials from your clients? And yes, Google reviews are really important. Video testimonials are king. Video testimonials are an incredible tool to help you to let your clients hear from other people that have already done business with you. It can be a huge tool. So we've got over 25 strategies around conversion rate that we employ. In a year's time, we're getting that up to 27.5%. So we're not talking about 25 to 35%, just 27.5%. And we're at 1,200 customers. And now we start looking at number of transactions. So a lot of times when I ask a business owner, "Oh, so how many people do you have in your database?" So, database? What do you mean my database? So your job as a business owner is to build your database of potential customers, of potential referral partners, and convert those into clients. So whether it's through some sort of like email marketing system like MailChimp, or even the next step would be around having a CRM, a customer relationship management system. How are you making sure you're staying top of mind for your customers, staying in front of them, giving them offers, celebrating milestones for them? How do you make sure you are in front of them all the time? That's really the key to number of transactions, making sure that you have an opportunity for them to come back more often. Also, now if we go back to Dave's plumbing, now when Dave goes into somebody's house, he'll say, "Oh, while I'm here, I offer a free inspection of other trouble points in the house. You want to take advantage of that now?" Yes, of course I want to take advantage of that. And through that process, Dave can get in the habit of planning future purchases, right? Like, hey, this is fine for now, but we're going to want to take care of that the next time I'm back. Or if we look, or we can look at average dollar sale, which I'll talk about in a second as well. So in a year's time, we get that up to 2.2. Now we're looking at average dollar sale, and that's really about cross-selling, upselling, and downselling, right? So in that inspection, for instance, Dave might say, "Oh, hey, I noticed that the gauges on your boiler, they're looking a little rusty. We could fix that now, or it could cost you $5,000 in a couple of months. Would you want to take advantage of that now?" Right? So it's just making sure that your customers understand everything that you offer, because there is nothing worse than hearing these words, and I've heard these from a customer, and it is extremely painful. It is, "Oh, I didn't realize you did that," after they just wrote a check to your competitor. So how are you guaranteeing that your customers, if you have checklists, if you have like a full pamphlet of what are all the things that you do, and how are you systematically checking on your customers on a regular basis to see when their situation changes, to make sure that you can cross-sell to other products, to upsell? So maybe they're ready. Maybe they're ready to use you at a higher frequency, invest more money with you. So making sure you have a system around that, and also downselling, which is a really important tool, because people's situations change, right? And you want to make sure they stay in the habit of doing business with you. They need to be in the habit of doing business with you. So if they don't need as much of your service, where can you leave them so that they stay with you, so they stay a customer? So in a year's time, that puts us up to 110,000. Look where that puts our revenue, 292,000. And then we start looking at profit margins, and there's generally a lot of low-hanging fruit at profit margins. The first one being your pricing. A lot of business owners are terrified to raise their prices. They haven't raised them in a long time. So pricing can be an immediate boost. A lot of different strategies around how you can price your products so that they're more profitable. The other big piece around profit margins is back to time mastery, like Dave was talking about. Are you investing your time in the most important things? And if you're not, what do you think your team's doing? If your team doesn't have time mastery, if they're not clear on the most important things, what do you think they're doing? Right? So being really clear on what are those most important things to be doing. And then ultimately it's about making sure you have a system around requoting your operating expenses, right? When's the last time you requoted your commercial insurance? When's the last time you renegotiated with your vendors? There's a lot of low-hanging fruit to increase your profit margins. So that puts us up to 27.5%. And here's what it does to your bottom line. Right? So we're up to 80,000. So that is a 46% increase in your revenue and a 61% increase in your profitability. And it's not magic. It's not rocket science. It's just 10% compounded 5 ways. So generally, if you want to know where to start, it's start looking at your profit margins. Where can you make improvements around your profit margins? There's probably low-hanging fruit there. There's probably low-hanging fruit in your conversion rate as well. Maybe you don't need to get more leads. You just need to be converting them at a higher rate. So if you're not measuring your 5 ways, start today, and you can start thinking about what are those strategies that you can employ. Or if you want to know the shortcuts, you can talk to us about. All right, so this will be the final slide for this video. So it's time to get into action. So after we wrap up here, what's your biggest takeaway or opportunity in niche? What can you be implementing across your 5 ways to increase your profitability? If you've got a strategy session with us already, just move on to the next video, watch the 3rd video. If you are just joining from our website, there is another video you can watch. Or if you've seen enough, you say, hey, I want to learn some of these shortcuts, book a call with us, and we'll be happy to have a discussion with you to see if it's a good fit. So thanks for coming out, and we'll see you on the next one.